This video will introduce the term research design and provide an overview of different design types in management research. A research design is an overarching template for the collection, analysis and quality assessment of data. Designs are about organizing research activity in ways that are most likely to achieve the research aims and objectives. Typically, a research design would describe the techniques to be used for the collecting of data, approaches for selecting samples, and how the data are going to be analyzed. Please note that different authors refer to this overall template using different terms. For example, Saunders talks about research strategies. In addition, there is some confusion between broad types of designs and their distinguishing features, and I would like to start the introduction by looking at these parameters. You must have heard about qualitative or quantitative research designs, or inductive, deductive designs, or cross-sectional or longitudinal designs. There are multiple ways in which designs can be characterized, and these descriptions capture certain features of design. Just like different views of human brains show different aspects of brain activity, different parameters of design uncover particular features that a design might share with other designs. The word share is important here. The designs share features, and it's very imprecise to describe design in terms of just one characteristics. For example, to say it's a qualitative, longitudinal, or exploratory design. I like to think about research designs in terms of the following parameters: logic of research, that distinguishes between deductive and inductive research; process of research, where we talk about quantitative, qualitative and mixed methods. We can also distinguish between short-term and long-term designs, where longitudinal versus cross-sectional design come in. Finally, given the purpose of research, we can talk about exploratory, descriptive and causal research. There is a level of interdependency between those parameters. For example, survey research would typically be deductive, quantitative, cross-sectional and either descriptive or causal. However, there is also a level of flexibility. For example, if you repeat a survey, then you may generate longitudinal design based on survey data. In general, one key difference underlying design concerns the logic of research and the difference between inductive versus deductive designs. There is a difference between deduction and induction, where deduction starts from theory and then uses observation of findings to confirm or disconfirm it, whereas induction starts from data and moves from data to theory. Considering that in contemporary research, induction forms a centerpiece of objectivist qualitative methods, you may find it interesting that it hasn't started that way. In fact, the classic analytic induction began in late 20s in Chicago with a work of one Polish philosopher, Florian Znaniecki. Znaniecki conceived analytic induction as a distinct conception of the scientific methods and put it forward in an explicit opposition to statistical method. Znaniecki was looking for universal truths, theories that applied in any and all circumstances, and he felt that statistic is not precise enough. It cannot be considered a scientific method because it produced probabilistic statements, that is, did not deal with exceptional cases that did not follow the theory. His idea instead was to develop a method that creates universal theory under any and all circumstances, and analytic induction was this method. Analytic induction was a causal analysis where the objective was to find what causes a particular outcome. The method starts with some notion of the outcome you're trying to explain. For example, business failure. You start by collecting data where this outcome is present, and your aim is to find out what those cases have in common that could be the cause or part of the cause. You then form a hypothesis and look for further cases. If you find an exception, then your option is to reformulate a hypothesis or redefine the outcome, and you look for new data and new cases until your data no longer forces any revisions to your hypothesis. Contemporary induction no longer seeks for universal truths, but you will see the remnant of this approach looking for cases that disconfirm in the present day ground theoretical approaches. Before we move to consider specific designs that are typical in management, I would like to briefly consider the question of interdependency of parameters of research design. By interdependency, I mean designs of different kinds share similar features. Take for example cross-sectional design, where data is collected at a point in time. Cross-sectional designs can be both qualitative and quantitative, where quantitative cross-sectional designs would involve surveys and qualitative designs may involve interviews or focus groups conducted at a point in time. When surveys are used in cross-sectional design, the outcome of data collection is a cross-sectional table where the rows indicate cases, for example respondent 1, respondent 2, respondent 3, etc. And the columns indicate parameters of these respondents, for example their age, employment status, level of motivation, level of satisfaction, etc. The logic of cross-sectional design is that by comparing at a point of time responses to different variables, you make inferences about relationships between concepts of interest, for example level of motivation and level of satisfaction. Cross-sectional design is typically found in quantitative surveys research in management, specifically marketing. Now, in longitudinal design, you typically collect data capturing the same variables at different points in time. In this instance, observation 1 and 2 may reflect the level of motivation or satisfaction, etc., at two different points in time. The purpose in longitudinal design is to make inferences about differences over time. Please note that longitudinal design could also be quantitative or qualitative, where quantitative will involve repeated surveys, whereas qualitative longitudinal design might include ethnographic research over long periods of time or repeated interviewing of respondents. I will finish the session with a quick look at Saunders and their research onion, which some of you may find convincing. The idea here is that your data collection is nested within a broader notion of methodologies, which are in turn nested within the broader notion of philosophies. Some students may find compelling the depiction of the polar opposites of positivism versus radical structuralism on one hand, and the associated move through different methodologies, research designs to data collection methods. In the next part of this session, we will look at some typical research designs in management. Bye!